My dude, this has been a frustrating little phase of our lives with content and podcasting, and like we're trying to get things so right for us and our audience and what we do, and it's like we've had so much fucking noise just come into us from these quasi experts, and while they're probably right in their lane, it just feels everything feels
Feels
gross.
gross. Mhm.
And then we do it, and it's like, okay, it's kinda half-assed, and, we know what we should be doing, but then we hear what we could be doing, and we want to kinda do that, and then it's like, but, what are you gonna do? Spend $700,000 on doing everything absolutely perfect to make $500,000? That's silly. And you and I have come up with this methodology of one, and I don't know if, many people have said it, Dan Martell and Alex Hormozy, and it's, everybody uses everything else, right? So do we.
Mhm.
But this method of one, and it's like, what do you do to help people get to 1 million? And it's, you have one product that you're selling, you have one channel that you're talking to all these things about, you have one conversion tool that you use, you have one market that you speak to, and you give it 1 year. And as much as we go and show people how to do this for themselves, we're even struggling with it. And the main point of contention recently has been like the content, because we're on TikTok, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're on Audible, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and the majority of the time that we spend is on LinkedIn. Like, why do you think, if so many of our clients are asking us, like, hey, how do I go out and market my brand and brand my stuff? How do I market and brand myself or my company? And we can give them such succinct advice that they're like, huh, that makes sense. I'm going to do that. Why do you think we struggle with that?
Because every student always becomes the teacher, right? It's always easier for us to say, "Go and do this," but it's harder to do it, right? Monkey see, monkey do. Do as I say, do as I, don't do as I say, not as I do, right? That's just human complexity, right? We struggle with doing we can advise, right? We could tell somebody, "Yes, to create a brand, you have to be aware, you have to recognize you're the brand, you have to create the perception, you have to give people a feeling and an emotion that they take away from your experience," and we do that, but it's so hard for us to stay authentic sometimes in it because we get caught up in the we have to do this thing and be this place and show up this way in the content. And I think the thing that I struggle with is keeping it as real as possible. And I said to you earlier, the two, we show up authentically when we are in a room with a bunch of people and we get to do our thing, or we're one on one with our clients, and those are the 2 most authentic places that we show up. And I mean, I know why I believe that is the case, but why do you think we show up so well in those experiences? What is it that we're doing differently?
Well, number one, I think there's um, a certain sense of confidentiality. So you know that you're in that room with those people, and number one, they can be very vulnerable, and you can be very individualistic and specific, and talk on a more broad spectrum to them that maybe you wouldn't share in public because of two reasons. Number one is it wouldn't make sense for the masses. And number two is you couldn't say certain things like that in public because it's disclosing a lot of personal, either limiting beliefs that somebody has, or financial difficulties that they're going through, or stresses in their competency in something when they're perceived to the world as like this rock star. But then when they're with us, they're like, but I'm not. And it's not imposter syndrome. It's actually in certain areas of their business, they're not good. And that's what we help them get through, whether it's delegating that to somebody else, or it's deciding that they're going to acquire the skill set, or spending the money on doing something. And when you're trapped in that, and both of us, our backgrounds, mine in finance and yours in healthcare, those are very, confidential industries that it's you can't share certain things legally or you lose your license, right? And that is carried over. Yeah, and that's carried over here, but that's probably also why we're so good at the coaching is because we respect that confidentiality.
Well, I think that that's a big point that you just hit on. Like the vulnerability that we are able to allow in the space for people when they meet with us is the key. And it is because of our backgrounds, right? When people discuss money, money is a very private thing, and people have discussed tons of money things with you. And healthcare, it's a very, very private thing, you know? Like it's a very intimate, both of what we've done in our past created very intimate relationship. And I think that's the key to our success when we're meeting with people in a room or one-on-one is recreated that environment and created a safe space for people. So I think you're right. It is the vulnerability, and that's where I was leaning towards is we give people that safe space to figure out what they need to figure out without judgment, right?
Well,
That's
think about this. So we had one of our clients reach out to you on our private chat, and I'm just going to use initials. So RL reached out, and it was because they wanted to talk to you specifically, alone, one on one, sometime this week, because they have created this amazing relationship with their new partner, meaning personal, and she's a wonderful woman, and he's really coming into his own. And now he's worried about he might be going back to old habits. And what so, like, why do you think he has the freedom and the ability to ask you, "Hey, I wanna talk to you about that?"
Yeah, well, one, we've been working together for a while. Two, we have the relationship and we've really built trust. I think he really trusts the perspectives that both of us offer. But in this situation, I think he's leaning in obviously to my relationship coaching aspects of my life coaching and really wants to, and feels like he can be comfortable with another guy asking for this advice on how we can make sure that this relationship doesn't suffer the consequences of prior relationships by having that conversation. And I'm really, when he reached out, I was touched too when he reached out, right?
Yeah.
Because we built that relationship you and him have a good relationship, and it's a little different than him and my relationship. What makes us all unique is the relationships that we create with people, but it was just so great to see him reach out and just feel vulnerable enough to say, "Hey, I really need help with this thing and I really want to talk to you about it and can we figure that out?" And it was just great to hear. And it comes down to the relationship that I think that we've built and established the trust and the safety piece of it because a lot of people don't feel safe to talk about their issues.
Well, that's true, but then so let's talk about last night. We had a free workshop, our accidental CEO workshop, and we had somebody in there we've never met before, but she felt very safe to open up to you as well. Why do you think, and even in that situation, someone has the ability to do that?
Well, I think, listen, I've always try to put out this welcoming approach to me. I like really no judgment. Like hope that most people when they experience me experience that lack of judgment, that I'm really here to listen to what you have to say. Like it's no secret. Everybody wants to be seen and heard, right? And I think that's the key that I try to bring to every conversation. Is how can this person be seen? How can they be heard? And I think we saw and heard her last night, and that's what allowed her to be very vulnerable. And she was in a room of all guys, right? So that's the other thing too, which really is a testament to even the other person and you being in the room. And it's funny, you're asking me that question, but you have always had this ability to get people to open up and say everything that they need to say to you. What is it about you that you feel gives people that opportunity to just be vulnerable and divulge all of their dirty laundry?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it stems from I know how difficult it is to do the things that people are trying to accomplish because I've done them all myself. I wasn't handed anything. I didn't go to an Ivy League school and learn the specific way to do it. I had to claw and scratch for every fucking opportunity I've ever had. So I think I come at it with a point of empathy that I'll say certain things or I'll ask certain questions in a way that if someone would have asked me that at that time I was going through that, I would have felt comfortable enough to be honest. And that's what I usually find is people have to put this facade on because they're protecting, especially in business, they're protecting their reputation out in the public. Where if I don't allow them to know, like, hey, I've been there, I've done that, I've gone through this, I'm going to help you with this. And don't worry, we're not really going to, go out to the world and broadcast that you suck at the thing that you do. Cause I used to suck too. And it's not just saying I've been there too. It's genuine. And I try to truly feel where they're at in that moment and then have reflective listening back to them to let them understand that I I hear what you're saying. I know what you mean, but and that's always the key. What do you really mean? Or why are you really asking that thing? Or why and I allow them to say like, "Ah, yeah, you caught me. What I'm actually wanting to know is this." And then when they say that, it's just you watch them like the weight off their shoulders.
Mhm.
And I think I have a lot of patience with it too.
I think the patience is a lot, but you just you triggered something when you said the "but," right? Because you are very empathic. You definitely allow people to to feel that you feel their whatever they're going through. But you're able to switch it so fast and get to the nuts and bolts of the situation and get to work. Where does that come from for you? Like, where did that originate? Like, how did you become so decisive and be like, "Okay, that's enough of that. Let's move on to this." But you do it in such a way that's not abrupt, but it just flows. But how did you learn to do that?
So a lot of it stems from where I've been a salesman the most of my life, even since I was a little kid, my parents got divorced when I was 7 and I had 2 younger brothers that I basically became their dad. And I constantly had to like get my family and even in business, I was 20 years old when I was the assistant vice president of Citigroup, which is everyone looked at me like, who's this young kid who's now my freaking boss? So I just had to sell people on like, "Hey, I get you. I'm here with you." I'm with you, right? That was the thing. I'm here with you. I'm not here to tell you what to do. But then I was there for a job, and it was like I needed my brothers to like put the backpack on and get to school. I needed the guy who works for me and is 40 years old and I'm 20 to just expedite the process that I needed him to do so I can go back and do my job. So I think I have just been in many situations where I had to get someone to almost instantly feel guilty that I have to tell them what to do. And then be like, you know what? I feel bad for Adam that he has to tell me this thing. So let me do my best here. So he looks at me with this like pride and like appreciation. And then when they do that and I give it back to them and like, wow, that's amazing. They want more of it.
It's an interesting approach. It's kinda it's kind of I don't know, sometimes I feel like we do that as parents too, right? We can feel the emotion, we can get in it with them and try to understand what they're going through, but then we have to be like, "Okay, let's go. I gotta do my thing, you gotta do your thing, let's go. Don't hold me up or hold me back."
But that's a big thing that you've given me in this partnership of our business is the understanding that we can be great parents and great husbands and great friends and have a great business. And I appreciate that so much. And it's difficult because I've always been very scoreboard oriented. How many sales do we do? How much money do we make? How much success do we have? All those things. So like how did you find the ability, especially with this whole accidental CEO thing? How did you find the ability to move from like, "Hey, I love doing this," to "I have a purpose," to then "I have a job," and how are you able to help our clients do that?
Ooh. That's a loaded question there. You know, I think for me, I used to get so caught up when I was younger, like, in my hyperachiever, and I think that's a lot of what a lot of accidental CEOs deal with, is this hyperachiever. They just want the result because when I get the result, I'm gonna get the accolade, I'm gonna get the praise, and I'm gonna get the validation that I need. And I think over the years, like, even throughout all of healthcare, I learned that it wasn't about the result. It was really about how you made people feel. And I think that's what allows me to, love what I do is I'm trying to create an experience to make people feel better about themselves so that they can execute on their purpose, right? Because a lot of people put aside and brush aside what their purpose is, right? They got a job and the job defines them, but they're not doing what they love and they never enjoyed what they love because they don't see that the purpose in it the way they thought they would see it. And I think that came through my own experience too, being a PA. I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't always love what I was doing there. And I made a conscious decision that if I can make other people feel really good about themselves, that will make me feel good about myself. And that will allow me to execute on the purpose, which will allow me to do my job. Right. So it's really, if I can create the experience for you, I can get you to see your own purpose and live it out. Why shouldn't I do the same? And then, yeah, I could do the job and get the thing done, but it's a purposeful job. It's an intentional job. And I think that's the thing we try to give all of our clients is what's the intention for why you're doing all this? Right? And accidental CEOs struggle with that the most because they recognize, oh, I love this thing. I'm so good at it. I'm fulfilling my purpose. But wait a second, this business thing sucks and I gotta do all this shit and gotta pile on all these extra responsibilities and it's like, all right, what's the intention of why you even started this thing? And it's reminding them that that's the purpose. And sometimes we gotta do the shit to live the purpose, or we have to go hire the people so we can do the purpose. And I think that's really where it stems from is my own reflection on my own life on how I was doing something I didn't love and focused on how to love it and really find something that I did love, and that's what coaching is for me.
Not everybody's that lucky, though.
No, not everybody is that lucky. Listen, I've been very fortunate and very lucky. Listen, we neither of us could do anything that we do without the support of our wives. Like that we're very lucky in that way. We get to have all this fun while they're busting their asses and working so hard, but we don't take that for granted. We really neither of us do, and that's why I think you are such a great dad, and the way you have raised your kids and the way you experience your kids and you know the way you take the time, I think, is part of your appreciation of being able to do what you get to do so you can be that thing, right? And I mean, you had very difficult experiences in life. And what really brought you to the purpose of being that you were going to be this best dad that you could be for your kids?
Yeah, I mean, it came from when I until I was like, I don't know, 5, 6 years old, my dad was awesome. Like, he was in my life all the time, and he built a business, a very, very, very successful business, and then it failed, due to his just not paying attention to the books and somebody else running them, and it just didn't work out, you know? And then they got divorced and it was gone. And from the time I was 7 till I was 18, like I had my dad on the weekends and I had a different mom because my mom went back to work and obviously the business failed. And my dad, I only saw him Saturdays and Sundays. And from that point forward, I just had parents. I didn't have a mom and a dad. I had guardians. I didn't have a mom or a dad. And when my wife wanted to have children, I was not ready. I still wanted to like explore and enjoy our marriage, and I basically we had a contract of like I had a year and then we're gonna have kids, and we had fun. We went to Italy and we did our thing and we went to Rome and Venice and We went on a trip to Paris and we went out to the vineyards on Long Island. We had a lot of fun that year, but we squoze everything in for that year. And then when we were in Paris, she was pregnant on the Eiffel Tower. Like, hoo hoo, no foie gras for you. But when I was scared shitless, I wasn't ready, I wasn't prepared, but when I once that kid was in my hands, like, you can't explain it, it was just like, I'm a dad, and I had a responsibility, and it was just given to me, right? By spiritually, it was just like, "Okay, you're now a father, this is now your new job," and I was very successful in finance at that time, and that just didn't matter anymore, and when I had to decide in that moment, "What kinda dad do I wanna be?" I made a decision. I was gonna be what the best of what my mom and what my dad were, and do everything possible to remove all the things that I would have done different or I wished were different. And that was so fucking hard because there was more that I would have done different. So I didn't have a lot of examples to be like, oh, I'm gonna do it this way. So I had to create it on my own. And I was 31 when we had a child. So I was a man. I wasn't a little boy. So I had a lot of life experience and I had a lot of expectations of others because they had worked for me or, they were accountable to things that I had paid them or asked them to do. So I knew that I was going to treat my kids like adults from day one. And that's what I did. And I had this thing with my wife where I said there's going to be no baby talk, no this. I'm going to be honest with them about everything. Even to this day, if you heard our conversations, you'd be like, are those four adults talking? It's just unbelievable, and I think that's carried over into my relationships with clients, is I'm treating you like an adult, I'm treating you like a peer. It's like, just because I have 25 years experience in this thing and you have 1 doesn't mean I'm any better than you. It just means I have more information that I can then help you, and I think that's a lot of what has to do with how I become such a great advisor and then an amazing coach is the ability to just not think I'm anything special, and I'm not. It's just I have this use that you can use, and guess what? As you use it, I will learn more. So I benefit from you getting better. I benefit from you hitting milestones. I benefit from your failures because all those ways I learn more of what to do that I was not getting from my parents.
Wow. You're right. Treating kids like adults is a key, very key. I see it. I see it in my own family. Those who baby, the immaturity is there. And those who treat like adults, the maturity just goes through the roof. I mean, I think my kids are very mature. I mean my daughter is 14. Her and her friends wanna go out for dinner, they make their own dinner reservations. They do a very adult thing, they get organized very quickly, and it's amazing to watch, and, one of the things that I was afraid of when I started my business and started this business was that gonna take away from my time with my kids? I think a lot of accidental CEOs really do struggle with how do we they try to find the balance between, life and business and all of that, and we always talk about how harmony is what it's about, and I think that the thing that has really helped me to really continue to be a better father is to keep the boundaries that we keep. You and I have great boundaries when it comes to our kids. Like I was like, "Can we start a little earlier later to on this thing we're working on?" You're like, "No, I got to pick up my son from a test and I have to bring my daughter to a test, right?" It's all of those different things that we recognize that we have to maintain those boundaries, and boundaries are critical because if you don't have good established boundaries, people will step all over you and take advantage of you. And then that will activate your people pleaser. And then you wind up in places where you don't want to be and doing things you don't want to do. So if you want to continue to be a good parent or become a better parent, it's the boundaries that you set between your business and your life that are going to determine how successful you are in that. And
But you've used that in business too, and it's very interesting. I want to share with them something that you probably haven't shared or we probably haven't shared. Is you're very good with boundaries, and you are more of a parental figure in a very compassionate way to people. But then every once in a while, there's a boundary that you say, no, 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 we have to go over here, and Brooklyn Tom comes out. And you have this boundary of, like, enough is enough, and it's not the disciplinarian, but how would you explain what Brooklyn Tom is when we're in with our clients?
So so Brooklyn Tom is, "All right, enough with the bullshit, enough with the thing, let's go get the fucking thing done," right? That's the because listen, no is a boundary, right? I'm literally saying, "No, we're not going to do this any like, stop. No more. Like, I've given you the space. You've had the opportunity to get it out. You've had the opportunity to express yourself. But now it's like, let's get to fucking work. Like that enough is enough." And I do that even in my own relationships with my kids and my wife and like I'll let them vent and be like, "All right, but now we gotta just fix the problem. We gotta solve the thing or do the thing. No more whining about it. That period is over. Move on. Let's make it happen." That is just the way, I was raised. That comes from the way I was raised. Listen, I was raised in a very Italian American household, right? And my parents, even though they're in their 70s, they are more of the generation mindset in the 80s, of someone who would be in their 80s and early 90s. They had a very traditional approach to things, and they didn't let you, whine and complain. It was like, "Okay, yes, okay, you did that, now how are you gonna fix it? Like, how are you gonna make it better the next time?" And that's how I was raised, and that's where Brooklyn Tom comes from, right? And even working in healthcare, um, helped me to create that boundary because I trained in Brooklyn. I did all of my internships in Brooklyn as a PA student and even worked in Brooklyn as a PA my first year out of PA school. And dealing with tough populations, right? Underserved populations, dealing with people who did not have a full education and weren't very intelligent necessarily, you have to you have to be crystal clear. And there's a time to be compassionate and there's a time to put the work in and to say, "Nope, you gotta do this." And that's what people always look to me for is, "Okay, listen to my story, but then tell me what to do, please, because I don't know what to do." That was my conditioning as a PA, right? People are coming to you, "All right, so tell me what's going on. What's your story? What's the problem? All right, now here's what we're gonna do about it," right? It was like that's just the conditioning. That's really where I think it got reinforced from my childhood. But that's where it comes from. That's what Brooklyn Tom literally comes from Brooklyn. But more not because I was born and raised in Brooklyn, but I was trained in Brooklyn as a clinician. So, it's funny. Oh, man. So, I wanna close on a positive thing this week. What's something that you saw in any one of our clients that made you feel like, "Holy shit, we're really good at changing people's lives. We're really good at this."
We've been a lot more females have been coming to us lately. I think like 3 of our last 4 clients are women, and, there's one that runs a med spa, and this was, about a month ago. We ended a session, and you just saw that she got her. Like, it had nothing to do with the advice that we gave it, but she finally surrendered to, like, "This is who I am, and this is the life I want, and this is how I'm gonna go after it," and she had this optimism about her that wasn't just, like, hopeful and wishful. It was, "Okay, here's the work ahead of me, and if I just do that, I get everything I want," and it wasn't bullshit, She really didn't even have to believe it, she knew it, and I think when we're able to give people reality in a way that makes them feel good, because a lot of what you see out there in coaching or on social media is telling people all the things they're doing wrong and how to fix them. And I think that people are not broken. They're just ready to move on to the next phase of their business or the next phase of their life. And they almost need this permission to, okay, I'm ready to do this. And this woman had such a big phase that she needed to step into, but she was ready for it. No one had given her the okay, here we go. And I think we were able to give that to her, and since that point, she has made massive shifts. In like a month, month and a half, she has made massive shifts with closing one office and opening another one and hiring people and, paying $15,000 for advertising and she's really like owning all of it because she was always ready. And we just gave her the launch pad to be able to do that.
I love that. The permission. It's the permission to do it. That's the key. I mean, for me, it was yesterday with our client who I said after 4 years has finally come into his own, letting go, but it took 4 years for permission to seek, to what do you get, sneak in there. And he really it really was awesome. Such an awesome moment to see someone finally take the advice, but not take the advice, but see the fruits of his own labor and the labor of letting go that allowed him to move forward and is allowing him to really excel at this point. And that's what it's all about. It's we give you the permission to do the things you really want to do. And that's what intuitive coaching is all about. Is speaking to your intuition and getting inside with you to understand that you have every answer in you already. You just need to give yourself the permission to go out and do it.
There you go. Go to atomicbusinesscoaching.com. There's plenty of stuff there. Free stuff. You can take advantage of all that. Paid stuff. If you're ready for something like that, check it out. But atomicbusinesscoaching.com, and follow us on LinkedIn. See you.